Live now. So welcome everybody. I am Barbara Carr with Fuse Empire, and I am here today with another episode of Barbara Talks Business. And I'm super excited about my guest today. I cannot wait to share him with you. But before we get started, I want to give a little bit of housekeeping and reminders because we are live on a couple of platforms. We do go live every Tuesday at 2 o'clock. So we are on YouTube right now. If you're watching or hearing this, you can find us on Fuse Empire. And then on Facebook, we are in a private group titled Tools, Tips, and Training to Grow Your Business. If you're interested in getting in on that group, go ahead and search us up and ask to join, and you will be approved as long as the answers to your questions match what fits our community. And so today we have a very special, exciting announcement towards the middle of the show where we're going to be giving away a prize. It's a cash prize, so you will want to pay attention to this show. So don't just hop off because there is some good stuff here. You're going to get great education from my guest, Brian. You're going to have an action step to walk away with and an opportunity to win cash. So with that said, Brian, you can wave at the camera as I read your bio. Give us a hello. So Brian Sly is the founder of Emblem Inc. His work in the marketing and video industries and his ability to see data in a creative way have helped nearly 100 business owners overcome the hurdles so that they can focus heavily on the future. Brian's unique perspective has led him to create numerous systems that businesses still use today. Loyalty first marketing, video training wheels, the life messaging model, and the emotional needs timeline all guide businesses toward whatever their own vision of success is. No two businesses are the same, and Brian loves the challenge of finding the uniqueness within their own data, primarily their customers. Nothing excites Brian more than partnering alongside entrepreneurs. Their stories and passion drive him to blur the lines between where their business ends and where Emblem begins. And so I have known Brian for many years now. We've been able to have conversations over the past couple of years, and we've even been able to help one another and give each other guidance. I love when I have somebody else on the podcast that knows about marketing as well, because it's a fun conversation. So with that said, Brian, let's go ahead and start with something basic. Outside of business, who is Brian?
Outside of business? Oh man, first of all, I grew up in Michigan, so I'm an avid Red Wings fan. I know a lot of people in the Chicagoland area are tuning in for this. Sorry, I know your Blackhawks are ahead of me in the standings, but I love the Red Wings. I'm here with my girlfriend Heather. We've got 2 dogs, 2 cats, and a lot of really nerdy memorabilia in the back. So that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
Okay, awesome. And so, for those of you who like behind the scenes stuff, before we jumped on here, I don't know much about superheroes. So I was asking Brian to tell me about the pillows behind him that are superhero related, which is, I know a lot of people of superheroes, my husband included, and he's always trying to get me to watch those Marvel movies and stuff. And my answer is always, can I have popcorn and soda? If it's yes, I will go watch whatever you want. And so I have seen many of those movies and I don't understand any of them.
They're fun.
Good. And so loyalty first marketing, I love that, Brian. And those of the people who are watching the show right now, a lot of people who are in my network are people who I'm very loyal to and who are very loyal to me. So they get to experience this firsthand. I'm always sending cards and gifts and text messages and just sending love everywhere I go. And I've recently started adapting the model of serving others rather than working with them or working for them. It's, I'm serving people for the Lord and, seeing it in a different mindset. So I love how loyalty first marketing is what you're really big on. Can you describe to people your take on what that means?
Yeah, and I do want to say that you're spot on when you say that you write people cards. And I think after the last time we spoke, it wasn't even a week later, I got a card in the mail from you that just said, thanks for your time. And nobody does that anymore. So it stood out. It's probably actually in my drawer right here where I keep cards from colleagues and family and friends that just mean a lot, because we don't get those. We don't get that physical touch a lot of times, everything, and especially with COVID, not seeing people in person, everything's remote and everything's virtual. So I just want to, kudos to you that you do stand behind what you say. And we also don't see a lot of that in the marketplace anymore. As far as loyalty first marketing, that came about because as a video professional, I've done video for over 15 years, probably pushing 20. I don't remember what year we're in now. But what I noticed through the video trends is that so much video is focused on new customers and not so much on retainment of customers that you have, clients that you have, patients, whatever your market's called. And so when it comes to loyalty first marketing, my focus is always putting your current customers first. The new customers, acquiring new customers always comes second to how you can serve the customers that you have right now. And that's basically what loyalty first marketing means, is putting those that you're already serving at a higher tier than the ones that you're going to get, which is, counterproductive to what a lot of, let's say, big tech companies are doing when it comes to, they just want as many people in as possible. So they give the new customers all the good deals. I work the opposite.
I agree. I am a big fan of actually almost everything I do. I lock people in, right? Yep. So it's like, if you get in on this rate, you are locked in at it. And it's like, if a lower rate comes, a lot of times, like what you're saying, customers or companies are like, no, that's just for new customers. Yep. Well, why would you not reward your customers who have been loyal for so long? And so, yeah, definitely. I love the concept of that, is rewarding and showing appreciation for those who already are behind you. They're already supporting you. Yep. Rather than trying to get the next new person in, because it is easier to love and care about the people who you already have, and to be able to continue serving them if you already know what they're looking for. You already know where their heart is, where their passion is. You already know how to help them without having to try to figure it all out with someone else.
Yep, so I love exactly.
That. Thank you for sharing. So Brian, one of the things I know that you talk a lot about too is grading your life, customers, and employees. What do you mean by grading them?
So when it comes to loyalty first marketing and keeping your customers and serving them first, I guess understanding that not all of your customers are your best customers. There are going to be some that come and go. There are going to be some that just don't mesh well. There are some that they might make a mistake. There are sometimes you make a mistake, but it's being honest with yourself and grading how are they an A level, B level, C level, or D level customer. And when you do this with business, you can do it with other people in your life as well. So it doesn't have to just be business related. It can be like, who are the people that are sucking your energy that aren't giving you much more in return? Those are the D's. Who are the ones that are going above and beyond that you just can't wait to be around? They have a positive attitude. They're happy to see you. The collaboration is there. They always pay on time. Those are your A's. And so that's what I mean by grading. You're always going to have like your highest tier, and then you're going to have your lowest tier. And then it's a matter of dropping the lowest and moving the B's and C's up closer to A's if they're a good fit.
Oh, yeah, for sure. In one of the classes that I teach in Fuse Business Training, it's called, I got a lot of these concepts from Referral of a Lifetime, the book, but I call it turning your raving fans into paying clients, right? Your friends and turning your friends and followers into raving fans and paying clients. And in that class, I actually have a grading system as well. I'm sure Awesome. It's a bit different than yours, but it is very similar concept, right? Like grading to know, because why spend all your energy focusing on someone who's not really ever going to give you the time of day anyway? Or even if they are giving you the time of day, maybe they are a paying customer, but they're not quite as important as some of your other ones. In fact, I mean, I'm not going to say which one of my clients I'm referring to right now, because some of them might be watching this, but there's one particular client where I tell my team, this is our top priority. This client is our top priority, right? Like whatever we got to do to make things happen for them, we've got to do this. Doesn't mean the other clients are not as important. They're super important, but there's a reason why this particular client is our top priority, and we've got to focus on that. We don't push other clients aside for it, but we don't want to let this client fall, into a spot where we're not able to serve them. And so knowing who your top clients are and why they're your top clients, in my opinion, it doesn't always have to do with money, right? So maybe it's the mission they're on, maybe it's what they're trying to do to impact the world. So knowing that, I love that you share that. And then I know that you, actually, Brian, before we go on to the next topic, I just want to remind people that if they're watching this live, you are allowed to ask questions in the chat. So if Brian's saying something that you're like, oh, that sounds cool, but I want to know more, or can you clarify this? Feel free to put a question in the chat, because we're happy to answer it right here while we're live. And if you're watching this after we're live, don't worry, we'll get Brian's contact information at the end of the show so that you can reach out to him if you still have further questions. So Brian, I know that you've also talked a lot about emotional needs timeline. And is that something that you've developed yourself, and what is that?
Yeah, so the emotional needs timeline is, it started off as emotional worry, because in marketing, as you know, a lot of times it's solving the worries of your customers and your prospects. And what I found over time is that it might not always be a worry. It might be an opportunity. They might have an opportunity towards something. And these are lessons that I've learned from many different business classes. And, shout out to Anton J and to Samurai Group, different companies that I've worked with over the years that have helped hone the direction that I'm headed. But what I found with emotional needs is that people are usually focused on the past or the future. There's an issue, there's a worry, there's an opportunity, and they generally fall under like one of 10 categories. We don't have to get into all of them, but it could be money, it could be time, it could be control, their inner well-being, their outer well-being. I'm blanking, I have the sheet over here that breaks them all down. But across those 10 different categories, when you know what your customer's biggest needs are, and whether they're focused on the future or they're focused on the past, it just opens up so many opportunities for you when it comes to your content, when it comes to the way you talk to them, the types of information you can send them outside of what you produce yourself, the ways that you can truly serve them and offer support for what they're endeavoring. This is with the emotional needs timeline. When you talk to your customers and you find out where they fit, it just makes everything so much clearer, especially when it comes to content.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So Brian, you also use a spreadsheet, right, that includes both this grading scale and the emotional needs timeline. And I know that you offer that to people as well, too. So if you guys are interested in that, when Brian gives his contact information at the end of the call, he'll share with you how to obtain that. But it's a spreadsheet that is very helpful. And then, of course, you could always schedule time with Brian to learn more, even after you get the spreadsheet. So Brian, you also talk a lot about paying to learn versus paying to implement. So paying to learn versus paying to implement. I feel like that was a tongue twister. So let's talk about that a little bit. What is the difference?
So paying to learn is a philosophy that I've learned through the networking world. And I'm sure you connect with a lot of these people. I used to be one of these people, where when you pay to learn something, you sign up for the next program, or you sign up for the next online course. You pay for learning, and you're not ready to start because either it's a lack of confidence, or you don't think you're ready, or whatever a number of reasons are. And so you keep paying for more and more and more and more across the timeline, and you're paying to learn, but you never actually take that first step. Versus paying to implement, which is you pay for a program and you're all in. You take that first step. You might only make it through the first chapter or the first lesson, and you're 5 minutes in and you put it on pause, but you're moving forward for the first time. That's really where I guide my community in terms of, I don't want you paying for everything you possibly can because you're going to get overloaded. You're not going to know where to begin. But if you pay to implement and you only get one lesson out of this, that's one lesson further that you're actually moving on. And that's really where I think entrepreneurs and business owners, especially, can be focusing their time a lot more efficiently.
Oh, I totally agree. And Brian, in fact, that's how Fuse Business Training even came to be. I was at a workshop with one of my girlfriends, one of those 3-day workshops, right? And you learn as much as you can.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you're getting so much out of it. And then I look over at her, we're on Sunday, and I look over and I'm like, I'm never going to have time to implement this. Most people in this room are never going to have time to put into practice what they just learned. And over the next week or two after that, I decided, you know what, I'm going to make time for this, which I did. But it took a lot of effort. But because of that, I decided, you know what, I'm going to start doing workshops where people are forced to do the work while they're there. Because I know human nature, we have the best of intentions, but the world is full of distractions and life happens. And even with the best of intentions, you may never get to implement anything that you learned. So I love that you are big on that as well. And I know that a lot of the things you do are way above my head, right? It's like
same with you. The outbound marketing world is not here for me. It's so I'm the same way.
That's why I think we work so well together. A lot of times I've had people contact me after a show when I've had a marketer on, and they're like, isn't that person your competitor? And I'm like, no, like this person is a collaborator. He or she worked really well with me, and this is why. And some people I've had on the show where we actually do some of the same things, but that's okay because there's some things that they do that I'm not even interested in. And there's some things I do that they're like, I don't want to touch that, right? So even though there's some overlap with some of my guests, it's like there's always something that the person has that is crucial to my audience that they can't get from me. And so I love having you on here because I'm excited to get into some of the stuff that is more, I like to call it intelligent. When I think of you, Brian, I think of a high level of intelligence.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm just like, some of the stuff that you've shared with me, I'm like, man, he's so smart. How did he figure that out? Or how did he know that? And so I'm so happy to have you here.
A lot of trial and error. And, I'm happy to share my mistakes so you don't make them.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's good to have people like that. So let's talk about, now that we've both agreed that we are big on loyalty.
Yes.
Let's talk about why it's so important in today's world. Here, for those of you who might be watching this 30 years down the road, please God, we're in 2021 and we're going through the coronavirus pandemic right now. So Brian, let's talk about this.
Oh man, where do we begin? With loyalty, especially in a COVID world, when everything is virtual, and I kind of touched on this at the beginning, when you can't be there physically with people, that there's already a little gap in terms of the way you connect with people. And so if you're constantly fighting to get new customers and new clients and new patients and whatever your market may be, then every time you're pushing out more and you're trying to grasp more, you're just distancing yourself from those that you might be serving already. And so I think from my perspective, from my opinion, that the loyalty towards the people you have is much more valuable and much more important for growth, because if you continue to put their needs ahead of yours and continue to love what you're doing and love the results that they're getting, they're going to speak highly for you. It's essentially, and I don't want to pull away from marketing. I know how important marketing is, especially because I'm talking to you. You can lower some of those marketing costs when it comes to introductions and getting in front of warmer clients by making by supporting the customers you have and almost letting them be a small part of your marketing team, making those introductions and speaking so highly of you from a reputation standpoint.
Yeah, for sure. And the best thing that you can hear from somebody who's telling you about a company is how much you love them, right? And when you're loyal to someone and you serve them, as if you as if they're your only client, they'll be loyal to you, and their loyalty will make people tell other, like I call them raving fans. There's so many times people come up to me and they're like, "You're Barbara Carr." And at first I thought it was so weird, but then it's like, okay, these people have found me on Facebook because somebody told them about me, or they heard me on, one of these podcasts or something like that. They find me on Facebook. We're friends on Facebook for who knows how long. And then they meet me in person. Sometimes they're excited. I've never had somebody not be excited, but sometimes they're overly excited. And at first I was kind of like, how does this person know me? Or like, and it was really weird, but it comes because of your reputation comes before you do, right? So like if people have heard of you, they've heard who you are and what you're like before they've even met you in person most times. And so you've got to live up to that. If people are talking about how great you are and how giving you are and how loving you are, and then somebody meets you and you're not those things, it's really hard to keep loyalty in that instance.
Yeah, and I love that you had Janice on last week talking about reputation, and because that is so important, and especially to come after what Janice had to say and to talk about that reputation and a loyalty standpoint. It is exactly what you said. I mean, I had an instance where I actually lost someone, a friend on Facebook, because of a post I put out. I retracted it, but that instance, the time that it was there, it was a separation of who I portray myself to be and who I am versus what I said at a time of high emotion. And so that was a learning point for me, that to keep things in check and to make sure that, not to lower who you are, always be who you are. And we're not going to, connect with everybody, and we're not going to make everybody happy 100% of the time. But for the ones that do know who we are, especially if we've already spoken, if we've already had that dialogue, or we've had that impression with them, knocking it down a level, it takes a long time to build that back up.
Yeah, it sure does. And one of the recommendations I would give too is if you feel offended by somebody's loyalty or lack of loyalty, make sure you go to that person. Because I had not necessarily a similar instance, but I had an instance where somebody who I thought was a big fan of mine, and I was a big fan of his, and that we were in networking groups together and we were sharing contacts and referrals back and forth, had made a post where he didn't mention my name, but it was clear that he was talking about me. And anybody who knew both of us knew that was about me, and it did offend me. And I could have taken that a lot of different routes. But what I did was I contacted him directly. And I said, listen, I want you to know that I know that post was about me. I appreciate you not saying my name, because that would have, been bad for my reputation. I know it was about me, and it offended me and it hurt me, because I thought that, things were different between us. And so I went to him directly. He apologized for it. He didn't intend it as like a post to be like, to hurt me or to make me look bad, but that's what it felt like. And so I went to him. We were able to mend things, but in all honesty, things aren't the way they used to be with either of us. I'm no longer in the networking group that he runs, right? Because I don't feel that I didn't feel that it was a good fit, that if we didn't see eye to eye on this particular business topic, would we really refer people clients? And maybe we will in the future. I don't know. But I still think he's a great guy, and I think he thinks I'm a great girl. And I know that we both agree that we're both good business people, but because there was a hurt there, it may not ever be the same. But it's not something that I should go and, try to hurt him back or anything like that. It was going directly to the source, stating in honesty how you feel, and then working through that. Right. And I believe we both handled it very respectfully and maturely. And I do think that it saved our relationship. Otherwise, I could have let it hurt our relationship by blocking him, right? Or saying bad things about him. But none of that works, because we run in the same circle. We can't have a bad name against each other. And so loyalty is important. You're right.
Yeah. And that's a great point, because with the person that this happened with, I didn't even know there was an issue. And then it was one of those where the communication afterwards opened up my eyes, and I was like, well, yeah, I mean, it was corrected at the time, but like you said, once you've crossed that bridge, it takes a little bit to build it back up. But when loyalty is there, especially when we're not going to be perfect. None of us is perfect. We're all going to make mistakes. It's a matter of how we look at each other after those mistakes. But how, when it comes to loyalty, how do you keep building upon that, and how do you push further to stand behind what you stand behind? I mean, when I looked back at the loyalty first marketing at the end of each year during the holiday break, I always go back and review what happened throughout the year. How can I become more of what I say I stand for?
Yes.
And one of the areas was, if I'm talking about loyalty and I'm talking about putting those people first, I can't grow a network of accepting all of these people that are coming in without getting to know them and without having some sort of reference. So I cleared house. I mean, I dropped my LinkedIn in half. I dropped my Facebook to a third of what it was, because I only want to accept people from here on out that have a recommendation from someone else. That if I'm talking about loyalty, if I'm talking about reputation, working with people that I trust, then that, to me, that's what I felt like I needed to do, was only accept people that either A, can offer something of value to my community, or B, have an introduction from somebody already in my community that vouches for them.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And also being honest, when you know that you've dropped the ball, right? Like, it's okay to go to your client and say, listen, I messed up. Here's how I'm going to fix it, because I realized that this hurt you, or that this hurt your business, or whatever. Here's how I'm going to fix it. So own up to it if you're the one. And I've had to do this in my past as well, right? Like I have done things that really haven't been the greatest decision, and I've had to go back to that customer and say, hey, I realize if you don't want to continue working with me, I don't know how, like, sometimes I know how something happened. Sometimes I'm like, that was just an oversight. And, you know, in the marketing world, sometimes that could be bad. In fact, an example, I have a client that's in the CBD industry, and one of their posts accidentally got posted on another client's page. And I noticed it, and she noticed it, and it was like, oh my goodness, let me delete it right away. I don't know actually how that happened, but I'm going to look into the system, figure it out. I looked through things. I found where the issue was able to fix it so it would never happen again. But I had to own up to it and say, I'm sorry that happened. I will make sure it doesn't happen again. And if she would have decided she didn't want to work with me anymore, totally understandable. But she understood. She forgave me. We moved forward. You know, and then obviously you learn from that, and you make even more of it and attempt to make sure things like that don't happen again. I went through and I looked through every channel we use and every client we have, and I'm like, let me make sure, because most of my clients are faith-based. Could you imagine something like that going on a faith-based page? And she is very faith-based. So it was like, at first I was like, oh my goodness, what if she doesn't work with me anymore? But owning up to it was really the important thing to do.
Absolutely. I mean, communication in general, when I look back at all of the biggest issues I've had in business, is because of a lack of communication from the other party or from myself.
In any relationship.
Yeah. And then it comes to that when to jump back to grading the people in your life, or your clients or your customers, that has to be an honest. You have to be honest with yourself too. When you grade them, do they fall a certain way? Let's say they're less than an A grade. Are you putting them there because of a mistake you've made or something you've done? Or are you putting them there because of that's who they truly are? And so you have to look at this from an outside perspective and realize that your communication is key to everything. And if you drop the ball, like you said, if you make a mistake, own it, and then do everything you can to move on.
Yeah, because we all make mistakes. We're human. None of us are perfect. So we will make mistakes. It's not if we make a mistake, it's when we make a mistake. How do we handle it, right? And so and I love that's one of the areas where you come in then, right, Brian? Because you're an outside perspective, where you can sit down with somebody and they go through all of this stuff, and you're able to say, wait, but have you thought about this? Right? Have you considered that this may happen? And so actually, this is a good time I want to remind people again that you can leave comments and ask questions if you want. I've got a lot of people here, Brian, that are saying hello in the chat.
Oh,
I don't
hello,
see any
everybody.
questions yet. So thank you for those of you who are watching live. I want to move into some of the things that I teased you guys with in the post about Brian. So bear with me while I do a little bit of reading, because I want to make sure that I say these things how they should be said. And then I'm going to go into some questions for Brian. But feel free if you have questions to ask them. So Brian formed Emblem Inc. around the belief that differentiation is the key to growth. Agreed. While most companies focus all of their efforts on outbound sales and marketing, Brian's team uses a system he created called loyalty first marketing. As you guys have learned so far from our conversation, marketing is important, but there's some stuff that needs to come even before marketing. In fact, in my roadmap, I show people that marketing is like step number 17 on like running a business, yes, right? Like you don't just jump into marketing. And so marketing is important, but a lot of the stuff that Brian does actually comes before you jump into marketing. This system of loyalty first marketing that Brian has created separates marketing from sales, and it implements a community support based approach to growth. By focusing the majority of your time towards serving and over supporting your existing customer base, your customers will become the best marketing and sales tool that your company has. You'll save money, you'll have happier customers, you'll attract more of the right customers, and you'll get more repeat business. And even more, you'll receive more introductions and referrals to even more clients. So Brian's background is in video with an emphasis on video strategy. As the world was becoming more and more digital, Brian realized that small businesses were focused more on the technical side of video and not putting their investment towards a strategic approach to content or distribution. Now, my case is the exact opposite. So I was so focused on content and strategy that I was like doing my podcast in all different areas. And then it occurred to me that, you know what, I want to have a nice professional looking podcast. I want my background to be super awesome. I want to look great. And so I actually had my friend Ricky D from Ricky D Productions come and set up my background. In fact, I wanted it to be, when Brian showed up, I wanted to have the best background I've had so far because of his background in marketing or in video. And so today's my first day with this awesome background. There's still some stuff that we had to order, supplies that haven't come in yet that I should have waited so that it was perfect. But so if you're like looking at it and you're like, that's not great or that's not perfect, it's not Ricky's fault. It's my fault because I was so excited. I did this one even without the other equipment before it comes in. So next week might be even better. But so don't focus just on content and strategy, and don't focus just on like the technical side. You've got to have all those components, and Brian can help you with these things. Brian is a little bit too far for me. That's why I didn't have Brian to come here. Ricky D lives in the same subdivision as me. So I was like, hey, come on in. It's good to know a lot of people that do a lot of similar things. So moving forward, let's see. Brian's video training wheels, which sounds super cool, program shows businesses and entrepreneurs how to use their own equipment with a greater content engagement approach. Super cool. So what I'm imagining that being, and I'm gonna let Brian tell us the truth in a moment, but what I'm imagining, I love how it's called video training wheels. It's kind of like you're like a beginner doing video, you're on like training wheels, right? So cool name, Brian. And you're like, hey, I don't know, I've got a cell phone, I've got a computer, what can I do? And then Brian comes in and says, here's what you can do to maximize that equipment for what your goals are. Am I about spot on that, Brian?
Exactly. and I love that perfection. Perfection is so far in the distance. I love that you're taking the first step, even though you don't have everything in right now. So what Ricky D has, I love what he set up. I think the first thing I said when I jumped on was, I love your shallow depth of field. Yes. And for the non-photography, non-video people, that is where the background is blurry. Mm-hmm. So you have everything in the foreground is in focus and everything in the background is out of focus.
Yes, and that's purposeful, right? And so like exactly. If anyone's watching this and they're like, why is it blurry back there? It's on purpose, so you're not looking at which books I have behind me. Yep,
that's why I have two things. I've got my Superman pillow and I've got my Captain America shield. So
Yes.
I don't have the shallow depth, but I kept it simple.
Yes, because in the goal of that, the reason why we do either of these cases, what Brian and I both are doing, is so that you're not distracted. If you're trying to figure out what's behind us, you're distracted. You're not paying attention to us. So that was really awesome. And I'm so excited that I have this. And at first, you know, it's so funny because when it first got set up and Ricky D left, and then I'm trying to play with it myself, and the camera battery died, and I had to change the battery, and then it was all blurry again. Like even I was blurry, and I was like, oh, how do I fix this? And so I reach out to him, and he tells me super simple how to fix it. But it's really cool to have people like that who can guide you with areas you're not so great in. So a lot of you who are watching this, you allow me to guide you through business training and marketing training. And Brian is somebody who could train you with a lot of these details of your business that that you may not know how to get there. So for instance, one of the things that if you're somebody who you have a clear vision of your business, but you just don't know how to get there, that's something Brian can help you with. If you value video and you know you need to use it more strategically, but you're not sure how, that's something Brian can help you with. If your business already has customers, but you're not really getting a lot of repeat business, that's something Brian can help you with, right? All these things. If you've had growth in the past, but something changed, maybe that was COVID, maybe it wasn't, Brian can help you get past that. If you're adapting to the virtual world of sales and speaking, and you're like, now everything's virtual, and I used to speak on stage and now I'm speaking on Zoom, those different things, Brian can help you. Your marketing is working, but it could be more effective. Like you're like, hey, I'm getting some customers from my marketing, but I'm not really sure why it's only some and not a whole lot. Or my marketing is great, but it's not converting into sales. All of these things are things that Brian could help you with. And so with that being said, I want to go into some of the things that Brian actually does, because I know that you guys are probably like, man, he's super cool. What is it that he actually does?
Can you be my spokesperson?
Brian, you could use this video however you want. So Brian, his title, here's the thing that my assistant Amber, I want to give a shout out to Amber because she's super cool. She helps me so much. And when she contacted Brian to confirm his appearance on today's show, she reaches out to him and she sees that his title is Chief Communications Officer, or she sees that somewhere. It's fractional CCO. And she goes, I love that title. And so, Brian, wherever you got that from, she loved it. In fact, I think she's hoping to borrow it for her own title.
Go ahead. It's just a matter of companies now, especially more corporate companies, don't have the funds, especially with COVID and layoffs, and unfortunately the economic situation we're in, that bring somebody on fractionally for for you, bringing on a fractional chief marketing officer, a CMO, to handle, the marketing for a company for 10 hours, 20 hours a week versus hiring on somebody full time. That's really what this is a part-time communications title, or a title for part-time communications, to help a company that doesn't need somebody full time, but just needs a little bit of help to keep the ball moving.
Yeah, for sure. So explain to people what that is, in case they've never heard of a chief communications officer. What is that, and what is it that you would do? Like, explain to us. Let's say that I decide, Brian, I'm going to hire you today. What would that look like?
Well, generally communications is more outbound, PR based. So this is when you're communicating with the outside world, which it ties in really interestingly with marketing. You're reaching people who don't know who you are. Communications is reaching people who do know who you are. You're just kind of padding that relationship, and it's very PR based. I look at it like we talked about at the beginning, more internally. It's communicating with the people that are already in your corner, or the people that have touched in your corner a little bit, but they just need a little bit of support. And that's where my focus is making sure that that communication is, you're helping them in a strategic manner. You're helping them with their content and saying the right things to the right people at the right time. Yeah,
I love that. So so when somebody hires you for this, and I know you mentioned it earlier, it's more like is it a short-term position, or is it a long-term position but with part-time hours kind of thing?
It depends on what they need, and the way I would do communications is probably different than how somebody else would do communications. I tend to work in 6-month cycles. So that means the first 3 months, or first 2 months, we have like stage 1, the next 2 months we have stage 2, and then stage 3. And so we build it to a point where you're learning throughout the process. And we start with the fundamentals. Who's your customer? How do you reach them? Grading your customers, all the things we talked about at the beginning, that's usually stage 1. Stage 2 is then talking about how to reach them. What are the most important keywords that you're using, the phrases that you're using? How do you add more value to the community that you have already? That's building out the foundations in stage 2. And then stage 3 is pushing it all forward. And then if you want to go past 6 months, then it's, generally month to month, until you're at a point where you feel comfortable that either somebody in-house can pick it up, or you hire on somebody full-time who could just roll with what we've already laid out.
Perfect. And so you're creating these systems. And so if somebody does come in-house, or you hire a full-time person, you've already got a system ready for them that they just jump right into.
Yep, exactly. And they can modify it to their own, whatever works for them in terms of how they use systems. But it basically puts together a workbook or a binder or online, a CRM, a workflow that helps them through the process.
I love that. I am so about systems and processes and workflows. Like, I am obsessed with it. In fact, I don't know how that's not something that I do more often. I think people don't realize that I love them so much, but I have like spreadsheets for everything. And I have like standard operating procedures. My assistant and I go nuts over standard operating procedures. Like we're big nerds like that. And so it's really cool. If you are kind of just running in circles, or you're putting out marketing stuff, whether you're like working with a marketer or you're doing it yourself, and you don't see the results you're wanting, it's probably because you don't know who you're speaking to or what they want to hear, right? Like your avatar and stuff. And from what it sounds like Brian was just sharing is his company helps you to define not only who it is you're speaking to, but the things that you're trying to say to them and why you're saying these things, right? Like you're being very specific and strategic with what you're doing in your business, rather than just throwing out whatever makes sense. Oh, I forgot it's Valentine's Day in a couple of days. Let me just throw it out a Valentine's Day post. Like, that's not effective. And so get with somebody who can help you be more strategic. Brian, it's so awesome to hear more specifically what you've moved into, because I know when you and I first met years ago, you were more on the video path. And actually, I want to give a shout out to you, Brian, for those of you who are watching this on YouTube. This honestly is compliments to Brian, because I've been posting stuff on YouTube for years. And there was a time, I don't know, it was probably about a year or so ago, sometime during COVID, Brian reached out to me on LinkedIn and was like, hey, I know you post on YouTube a lot. Have you converted your YouTube to a business page yet, so you can see analytics and stuff? And I'm like, no, I didn't know that was a thing. How do I do it? And then Brian sends me an easy link to do it. I watch the link, I set it up as a business page. Now, not only can I see analytics, but I'm, as my page continues to grow, I can monetize it. I can do so much with it. And my page has grown. My YouTube channel has grown quite a bit. I'm up to over 500 subscribers now. So woo. Thank you all for who's following. And Brian, thank you for giving me that tip that you just reached out to me out of the blue, because you're so, you're so generous like that. And some people, again, might have seen us as some type of competitors, but here you reached out and was like, hey, here's something helpful. Let me help you. And you were even willing to get on Zoom with me and walk me through it if I needed it. Luckily, I didn't need that. It was pretty straightforward, but thank you so much for giving me that extra oomph for my business.
You're welcome. And that's funny. I had honestly forgotten about that, but yeah. So for anybody watching, if you have a YouTube channel and it's a personal channel, convert it to a brand account. Reach out to me after this, or speak to Barbara. She can give you the same link. It's not a video I put together. I found a really good instruction online that will walk you through it. But this way, instead of giving out your password, your login information to anybody who's going to help you manage your account, you can create brand new logins. You can give them administrative or editor access. You don't have to give away everything. You can kind of limit what they have access to. And it makes that workflow for growth that much easier.
And you don't lose your videos that you currently have up there either, which was the coolest part about it. Once it converted, I didn't have to start over. All my subscribers were still there. All my videos were still there. It was very helpful. So I definitely encourage you to reach out to Brian. And actually, Brian, if it's okay, maybe I'll post that in my private group.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Me as well. But those of you who are watching this on YouTube, we'll have all Brian's contact information in the description of this video as well. So feel free to reach out to him. He has so much information, even more than what we've talked about today. We just don't have time to talk about everything Brian does and knows. He's so intelligent. And what he does, it works. So if any of this intrigued you, reach out to him. So actually, Brian, in a moment, I'm going to get your contact information, but let's have people get to know you a little bit. And, and then I'm going to tell people how they can win that prize.
All right, money.
All right. So I don't have a title for this segment yet, so think of if you know one, all right? All right, so it's kind of like a this or that. I'm going to say 2 words, and you're going to give me your answer as it applies to your life, okay? So we'll start with an easy one, which is always my favorite, because as you see, I have a coffee mug here. People can guess if they think there's coffee in this, or tea, or water, or wine, or... or whatever you think. Put in the comments what you think is in this cup, okay? And so what I'm going to ask Brian, coffee or tea?
This is a very political answer. Coffee in the morning, tea at night.
Oh, I love it. I'm similar to that. In fact, I used to drink coffee all day, and then I'd have a hard time sleeping. So my husband very kindly asked me if I could stop drinking coffee after like 3 p.m. And at first I thought he was joking, but then I realized he was right, that I drink way too much coffee and I have a hard time falling asleep. So I switch over to like a lavender tea at about 4 p.m. Nice. So those of you who are asking, so I have some of the responses are tea, wine, what's in my cup, right? So actually what it is coffee. And it is a new coffee I'm trying, which I will post the link to. It's not an affiliate link or anything like that. But the reason I love it is because some of the coffee I drink has given me some stomach issues. Like I start feeling pain. This particular coffee is smoother on my stomach, so it feels better. But this is coffee. I'll post the link. Brian, tell us what kind of coffee it is that you usually drink and what tea you switch to.
I don't have a clue. I have no idea what we have.
Whatever the woman in the house buys.
Whatever we have up in the cupboard. I don't know. It's probably like, I don't know. I wouldn't say the cheapest than at the store, but probably close to it.
Okay. So you don't have loyalty with your coffee brand?
No.
Okay.
Oh, no. I'm definitely not the Starbucks type.
Oh, me neither. So I actually, out of the big name brands, I prefer Dunkin', mostly because of all, like, they give me like free coffee on Wednesdays and stuff. And so like when someone's giving you free coffee, and it does taste good, right? But some of the brands I'm loyal to that are more localized brands or, smaller type brands are, Black Rifle Coffee, which they're all about veterans. So that's owned by veterans. They support veterans. So I love Black Rifle Coffee. And I also love Locomo Joe, which is in Illinois. In fact, you might have met him through, like if you were doing some of the networking events out in Illinois a couple years ago, Locomo Joe. And the funny thing is, his name, I thought his name was Joe for so long. I kept calling him Joe because the name of the coffee is Locomo Joe, and I didn't put the two together like Cup of Joe. And at one point, I feel so bad. I don't even remember what his name is right now. I feel like it might also be Brian. And at one point, I called him Joe, and he was like, "That's not my name." And I was like, "Well, why is the coffee called Locomo Joe?"
That's hilarious.
And so funny story, but he is local, and he does like roast his own beans and all that right there locally in the part of Illinois that's in, I think, southern Chicago area. I don't know exactly where. We'll post links to this stuff if anyone's interested. Right. Again, none of this is affiliate links. I just like to share things if people are like, "Hey, that sounds great. I want to know more about it." All right, so that was fun. What about, let's see. Let's think of one that's not so easy. Okay. So here's a good one that is a little bit business related, even though I try to keep business out of this. Marketing or sales?
Oh, that's such a tough one. I would say probably marketing because it's more visual, it's more creative.
Okay.
It's I don't know. I mean, I come from the video world. I went to Columbia College, downtown Chicago. So I would probably lean more towards marketing, but I definitely have a huge respect for the sales, the emotional and relational set of sales that I never knew before I got into business.
Oh, for sure, because they're two different monsters, right? Like they're
Yep.
their own worlds. In fact, I always tell people, I was on a call this morning where somebody, right before I talked to him, he was trying to figure out all his marketing stuff. And then he had a sales appointment coming in. And I was like, I know marketing is like a full-time position in itself, but then again, so is sales.
Yep.
Right? And so,
two totally different hats.
yes, but many times we're all wearing all these different hats on one person. So that was a really neat insight about that. We have people in the chat that are telling us what their favorite coffees are and stuff. So how cool that we're getting so much engagement there. Remember, guys, if you have questions, don't forget to ask Brian. We're still on here for about 10 more minutes.
I answer anything, whatever questions you want. I'm an open book.
There you go. Perfect. So speaking of books, that was my next question. Audiobooks or tangible books?
Probably audiobooks.
Okay. What program do you use for your audiobooks?
Hoopla.
Hoopla. Okay.
Yeah. They're through the local library. So as a member of the library, they give you, I don't know, what is it? I think 5 or 10 free audiobooks or audio files per month.
That is really neat. I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
I'm listening to my first audiobook right now. I am more of a tangible book person. I like to highlight, I like to flag the pages, right? I love that. But because the book that we're reading this month for our discipleship group at the church is a book that I've just recently read just a couple months ago. So I'm like, well, since I just read it a couple months ago, I've already highlighted everything. Let me try it on audio. And audio is so much different. Like there's times where I'm like, wait, what did she just say? And I like rewind it. I'm like, I don't remember that in the book. And maybe it's the way that she's saying it was different than when I read it in my mind.
Yeah. In fact, let me see if I have, for the last business coach I had, I do have the highlight. I do that. So we had, I don't know, 14 books or something we had to go through, and everything. I bought those physical just so I could do what you were doing, mark them up. But usually what I would do, because I'm such a multitasker and I have to listen to something when I'm walking or exercising, is I usually get an audiobook. And if I really like it, then I'll go out and buy the physical copy. That way I have something that I can hold or take with me or revisit later on and quickly scan through.
Interesting. Okay. I like that. I'll have to try that because I have a goal to start exercising.
It's tough when it's 0 degrees outside. It's really tough.
Yes. I really am confident that I'll get there one of these days. Okay. So those are some pretty fun questions so you can get to know the guest a little better. That's a segment that I'm looking for a name for. So those of you who are watching, listen up, because here's how you can earn $50 cash. Okay, this contest will last 1 week until February 15th at midnight. So that's about 1 week, because I want to announce the winner on next week's show. So in order to win $50, all you have to do is be the winner of who creates the title for that segment that we just did. So it's a this or that segment. It needs to be fun. It needs to match who I am. So those of you who know me, come up with a fun title. Like you guys have seen, like on night shows, they've got all these different segments and titles for their segments. I want this to be something that's remembered. Like when I mention that this title, people know that this is the segment coming up and they're excited, because I'm going to do this with every show going forward. So think of a title. Anybody can win. So Brian can win. Any viewers can win. Even if you're watching this as the replay and not on live, you still are qualified to win. So where do you post the name? Well, that is right here on the video. So there are 2 places that you could post this. It has to be on, you've got to post it on where the live video is. So just so you know, there are going to be replays of this video posted on social media all week long, and even on the podcast. But the only 2 places I'm looking for the name are going to be the 2 places that aired live. So on YouTube, and then inside of the private Facebook group. So you've got to post your title there. Those are the only 2 places I'll look. I don't have time to look in a lot of other places. I'm very busy. So on February 15th, I will choose a winner and I will announce it on next week's podcast show, which will be Tuesday at 2. The winner will be announced, and then a check will be promptly sent out to that person in the amount of $50. So make sure that if you want $50, that you participate. Any answer is eligible. If for some reason we don't have a winner because none of them resonate with me, then it will go on to the next week. But I'm hoping that there's a winner for next week. So with that being said, now that people know how they can win money, don't go away yet, because there's a few fun last things I want to do. First, I want to get Brian's contact information in case people want to reach out to him. But then there's something that is an action step that you can take after hearing this new information that I'll have Brian share with us, which is his 4-point scale. He'll explain to us what that looks like as far as grading your customers. And that's something that you can do to take action to implement what you heard on this show today instead of just learning it, right? So you've heard stuff, don't just learn it, it's time to implement it. So Brian, let's do that. Go ahead and give us all your contact information that you would like people to reach you at. We will put it in the description of the video when the video is done, and then tell us your 4-point scale on grading customers.
Sure. You can reach me, email Brian, that's Brian with an I, at powerofemblem.com. And you can also call or text my cell, area code 810-955-3744. Those are usually the easiest. If you want more information about the brand, what we do for communications, a lot of video examples, how we break it up strategically, you can go to our website, which is just powerofemblem.com.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. And now the grading scale.
So we touched on it. If you tuned in at the beginning, we touched on the grading scale a little bit at the beginning, which is basically the first thing I do when it comes to onboarding brand new customers and new clients, is that I want to make sure that when we go after customers, or more of your best customers, let's put it that way, you want more of your best. So the easiest way to do that is to openly grade them. A, B, C, or D, 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever system works for you. It doesn't matter if you're a numbers guy or gal, or you're a letters, that doesn't matter. Basically, you want to start with your A's. Who are your perfect customers that you're working with right now? They pay on time, they're great to collaborate with. They might pay a lot. It also doesn't come down to only money. It might be, like Barbara said earlier, they align perfectly with your mission. They have a responsibility to you the same way you have a responsibility to them. Whatever makes your best customer, give them an A. Now, if they are a B, those are your customers that are just below an A that could move up. Those are the ones that they might communicate really, really well, but their pay isn't quite there. They don't have a need for your higher level services or products yet. They always openly communicate, they're respectful, they get back to you on time, they don't push things off. It's if you had more income from, or more sales from them, they would be an A. That's probably the easiest way to look at it. Then you have your C's. Your C's are the ones that they might pay a lot, but they're such a pain to work with. They don't get back to you on time. They extend projects forever. They call you up in the middle of the night. Everything's an emergency. Those are the ones that I'm sure you can probably think of them right now. I've had a couple C's I dropped immediately. Let me back up. I dropped them after I had the sales to make up what they were providing, because again, they do pay a lot, but if they're such a headache, you try to transition them out as quickly as possible. And then your D's are the ones that no communication, little payment, they're a headache. They want everything for nothing. They might call you 12 times before you can even, before they're even getting an invoice, that sort of project or that type of client. So again, grade them A, B, C, or D. A's are your best. B's can move up to A's. D's are your worst. C's try to transition out.
Yeah, I love that. And, you know, actually that goes back to the loyalty too. I want to just make a note of, be careful who you're loyal to as well, because if you're keeping these clients that are C's, that are like, they're paying you a lot, but they're a headache, you're going to end up attracting more C's. Or who do you think they're going to refer you to? More C's, right? So like if you keep working with your A's and your B's, those higher ups, you're going to attract more customers that are like them. They're going to refer more people who are like them, right? So be careful if you're putting too much loyalty into a C just because they're paying you a lot, right? Your loyalty needs to be with those A's and B's more so. And try to, like what Brian said, trying to transition those C's out doesn't mean you have to completely dump them and forget about that they exist, right? Maybe you refer them to someone who has more time to deal with their headache, right? Or a bigger team to deal with their headache or whatever it is. You can still be loyal to somebody and be helpful to them without taking them on as a headache long term, right? So just keeping that in mind, it does go back to the loyalty, being careful who you hang out with and who you're loyal to, because it's going to bring you more of those kinds of people. Okay, so we've gotten your contact information, you've given that action step. So that's what you guys should be doing right now, making a list of your clients and then grading them. So that
just grid them out.
And then that way, you know, if you're focusing too much time on some of those C's, maybe you've figured out now why you're so stressed. Or maybe you couldn't figure out why your best clients keep leaving you. Well, maybe it's because all your energy is put in those C's and D's when they should be in those A's and B's, right? So I think that's a great action step to take. Thank you, Brian, for sharing that. Before we jump off, I just want to make sure earlier, the shout out I gave earlier to Ricky D, who helped me with my background, I couldn't remember his business name at the time, but I want to make sure I throw it out there, and we'll put a link in the chat for that as well, or not the chat, the description. It's RND Production. So I thank Joel for that and for all of his help. Joel is his middle name. I call him Joel because that's what I know him by. So Joel, Ricky, same name. And I want to thank, huge thanks to Brian for being on this show today, for sharing his knowledge. If you guys want more information, reach out to him. Not only is he a plethora of knowledge, but like most people I know, he's got a great network of people that he could connect you to. If it's not something he can help you with, he probably knows somebody who can, and he can refer you. So make sure you're getting to know him, reaching out, even if it's just for a networking one-on-one to get to know him better. And then if you work with him, fantastic. And if you want his spreadsheet, reach out to him, contact him. He'll send that spreadsheet to you. And then if you need training on how to implement it, because again, keep in mind, we don't want to just learn things. We want to implement what we learn. So don't just grab that spreadsheet and print it out and set it aside and never do anything with it. Please don't do that. Please implement what you've learned here today. If you know me at all, I want you to implement what Brian is teaching us. So if you need help implementing it, don't be afraid to reach out to Brian. Brian, thanks for being on the show today.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I just have to say that I've been on podcasts before. I've been on, video conferencing and interviews, and you put so much effort and so much, so many shout outs. I just have to say thank you. There's, I don't know what else to say other than you do things differently, and I appreciate so much how you do things differently.
Aw, thank you. That means a lot to me. I'll say mostly it's because I'm figuring it out as I go. And it's my own personality, I think, that I'm adding into a lot of this. And so I do appreciate you saying that. That means a lot, Brian. And then if there's anything else that you think of that you want to share afterwards, you could share that in the comments of the video.
Perfect.
If there's something you think of, feel free to continue to engage. And then there's people commenting as well. You might want to go and engage with the comments as well.
Absolutely, I will. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in.